and welcome to TSP Weekly. This is your tech startup podcast for Thursday, October the 8th, 2015. Today we are once again recording at the wonderful Velocity Garage. We were going to be in the Strong Bad room today, which I was excited about because we rarely get the chance to be there, but we kind of got booted back to Trogdor because there's a pizza party in Strong Bad, and we didn't get any pizza.
I prefer Trogdor to Strong Bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know, just because you picked the other one.
There's interesting notes on the walls here. Maybe we can learn something as we're recording.
Hey, you know what's coming up? We got Code Fest.
That's right.
Happening with the City of Waterloo releasing their data sets October 24th and 25th. It's the 8th.
Yep.
So we're getting closer. So check that out. We're going to talk about that later in the webcast.
We'll have a nice little spot for them.
Yeah.
And we should actually introduce ourselves and the people in the room with us now that we've gotten started. So first of all, my name is Darren Conley. I'm a local tech entrepreneur here in Kitchener-Waterloo. Joining me is my wonderful co-host, fellow tech entrepreneur, Stephen Campbell. How are you today, Stephen?
I've already been to Code Fest, as you can tell. And,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I'm well. Well, thank you. Well into October. Mother-in-law and father-in-law are coming up for a visit this week.
Is that a good thing?
I've been cleaning like a madman.
Okay.
Yeah, sweeping leaves off the deck as they're falling onto
Excellent.
the deck, stuff like that.
Well, it's a beautiful day to be working outside today.
Absolutely.
So let's introduce our guests. So joining us today, we have Mike Kirkup and Brian Zubert from Top Score Baseball. And there was a recent name change, and I had to scribble out all my notes here and write in the other name. But formerly Score More, now Top Score Baseball. Very good to have you guys here. How are you guys doing today?
Doing really well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Gorgeous day. Wish we could be outside, but hey, Trogdor's okay.
Fair enough.
And everybody in Canada is going to talk about baseball today.
That's true. That's true. Maybe we should talk a little bit of the Jays stuff before the podcast is up. But in the meantime, I'd like to know a little bit more about Top Score Baseball. I perused the website briefly earlier today, but I like to go into these podcasts, feigning ignorance so that the guests can explain. I say feigning.
You're a really good actor.
Quotes, right? Yeah. So maybe if one of you guys wants to tell us what Top Score is all about and fill us in on how it works.
Sure. So Top Score Baseball, it's a mobile app for Android, BlackBerry, iOS. Does all the scoring of a baseball game, and we made that dead simple. But the real magic sort of comes in applying the Moneyball concepts that you're seeing a lot of professional baseball teams doing to your own amateur rec or youth baseball team. So basically have your lineup as effective as the majors, even though you're playing Little League.
Okay. And what would I, as a user, do? I downloaded the app, I've logged in or created a user account or whatever I need to do to use it. What now?
Sure. So first thing I do, add your team, add your players, and start scoring a baseball game. So as you're scoring your opponent, just click very simply, did the person get on base or out? So we made it dead simple. I don't care if you know what a 6-4-3 double play is. You don't need to. The result of the play is, did the batter get on base or out? Baseball reads like its own language.
Okay.
F9, who cares? The guy hit a fly ball and the fielder caught it. He's out. All right, great. So on base or out. Then from there, single, double, triple. And then where they hit the location of the hit. So from there we'll keep track of the full spray chart, see all the patterns where the batter's hitting the ball over time, and we'll do all the stat tracking. And so the real piece comes in once you've done a couple, 2-3 baseball games. We start figuring out the patterns for your team and can start figuring out, okay, this guy should be batting in first, this guy should be batting second, this guy should be batting third, and the net result is that given the traditional batting order, you should be scoring up to 20% more runs.
Wow.
In your baseball games as you would normally.
So you're just sort of optimizing the batting order algorithm for coaches that don't know what an algorithm is?
Yes, but I think that was the goal initially, and this is the things you learn about building a company and what problems you're actually solving. For most of our customers, especially at the Little League level, the biggest thing that they get excited about is that they now have real data to show that really kind of energetic parent, know your child should not be batting in third place, and this is why, and if he'd like to do that, he needs to do this, and here's how we can coach him, and so on. So it actually puts some real data behind what traditionally had been a much more kind of intuitive approach approach for the coaches, and now gives them almost like a safety net. And so many of our customers are saying like that's the reason that they keep using the product, because it removes
putting parents in their place.
Yeah, well, but it happens even at adult rec, right,
Sure.
where people get a little sensitive, right? And so it's like, listen, this is all about the data essentially deciding where you should be batting and why and everything else. And if you want to change that, you just have to change how you play.
Right.
And so it's entirely in your hands.
Sure.
And it's amazing how much of a difference that makes.
Now,
That's happening on a larger level, right? Like we have all this data now, and it seems like it's the age where we're trying to make it all make sense so that people that were good coaches can say, yes, those were the good decisions. The data does back me up, and people can get better without it. And not in just baseball, but everywhere, right? Like data is being collected at such a large rate.
Well, there's just things that you miss. And for us, it's bias, right? Like you talk about bias. I mean, everybody remembers home runs.
Right.
Everybody forgets the 5 bloop singles.
Right.
Realistically, who cares?
Yep.
I mean, that guy, if he can do that over and over and over again, those bloop singles, fantastic. You're actually a great hitter.
Yep.
Versus that guy who might hit one out 1 in 10 times, and the rest of them are just garbage. I don't care.
Yeah.
And you might actually be a better hitter hitting those bloop singles if you can do that repeatedly.
It brings a golf euphemism to mind, drive for show and putt for dough.
No, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Now, is it tracking like fielding stats as well, or is it exclusively kind of batting stuff that you guys are focusing on?
That's a great question. We actually intentionally avoided fielding stats.
Okay.
That's actually a place where bias helps you a lot because errors stand out like a sore thumb. You remember that guy who punted the ball or threw it over first base. That play you remember very, very vividly. So it's really, really easy for you with bias alone to figure out who your good fielders are and your bad fielders.
Okay.
Whereas said on the inverse, on the hitting side of things, bias really hurts you because said you remember the home run and you forget the bloop singles.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, we try to like basically on the offensive side of things help you get past the bias. On the defensive side of things, you already know who your best players are. I don't need to help you figure that out. It's really you'll be within a couple of errors of accuracy for who your best and worst fielders are.
Gotcha.
I think the other side is just like really what do you want to track and complexity, right? And one of the things that what we commonly talk about the fact that I traditionally don't like baseball, although it's growing on me. That
You don't have spray charts pinned on your wall at home and stuff?
I do not. But so Brian brought the passion and the knowledge and the experience from baseball. And one of the advantages that we had that we really didn't anticipate was the fact that I didn't really like baseball, didn't know it that well. And so I'm asking a lot of questions as we're actually building out the product. And the product ends up being built for people who don't play baseball, right? If you actually look at every app that's in the App Store that has anything remotely related to baseball, it was built by baseball people for baseball people.
Sure.
And in the professional leagues and in competitive ball and everything else, yeah, it's baseball people who are doing the scoring and using these apps and everything else. And it's a great fit. But in recreational and amateur, it's the mom.
Yeah.
Or it's the brother or the sister in the stands or, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Who's doing the scoring. And that was actually extremely intimidating for a lot of these people because they're like, I don't know the language and I don't know all these things and I'm going to make a mess of it. And so even if you were kind of spending time and effort to score the game properly, the data was completely useless. And so we removed all the complexity from it. And so one of them was, we don't actually care, because Brian says, as the answer, like, doesn't really matter or make a meaningful difference to the game. But the fielding and a lot of the other pieces, like, did they hit on 3 balls or was it 2 strikes or what's like, that actually doesn't really matter at the level of ball that we're playing.
Right.
And so we can simplify a lot of that, and that's really resonated with people.
That makes sense to me. Like when you talk about it comes down to language and communication, and you think you just speak English, but you can speak baseball or not.
Yeah.
And that's a huge skill, right? So
Yeah.
if you can bridge that gap between somebody that wants to speak baseball and somebody who does, like Brian, he's already said several baseball terms that I don't know what the hell
I don't
they
even
mean.
know what they mean either. That's the beautiful part.
That is neat. So
Yeah.
are you eating your own dog food, Mike, then? Are you out in shorts and cleats on the diamond?
I'm not
and
playing, but I am getting very good at scoring the Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh, there you go.
So picking the lineup and going through and actually making sure that we're using the app for that, because weird stuff happens, especially in the majors, like things that we never thought. Like I'm like, I remember one time we were scoring. Brian had picked this crazy game from the San Francisco Giants from the playoffs last year.
Yeah, do you remember the wild card game, the Giants and the Royals?
he did. He was talking about it earlier, actually.
Yeah, like, literally, like the Norla,
Sure.
the Norla, every weird thing that could happen happened in that game. Like it was absolutely crazy.
Right.
And so Mike was scoring, and he's like, can a guy steal home? Sure can. He's like, well, the app doesn't do that.
Oops, who would ever score like steal home?
Yeah.
And then I get a YouTube video that comes back and shows like this guy and the full video and everything. Like, here's how you steal home. I'm like,
Daryl Strawberry,
who knew
1981.
you could do this, right?
There you go.
So, but it really, yes. So we do a lot of testing now. Thankfully, we have lots of users who are also doing lots of testing and reporting bugs. So, but absolutely, I still do not play ball.
Oh, fair enough. It's funny because when I watch baseball, which is not all that often, I don't watch it alone. But usually I'm sitting with my dad on a Sunday afternoon and there's a ball game on, we watch it together. And
in October, when you're wearing shorts.
Sure. And the whole time I'm watching, it's pretty much asking those kind of edge questions, like what happens if the ball like bounces off that post that marks foul or not? Does it count as if it bounces out of his glove and then goes over the fence? And like I've asked all of those questions, right? This is it's same when I watch football. Actually, it's the same thing. What if they do this and this and that? So my experience of sport is trying to learn all those edge cases because I get the rest of it. You hit the ball, you run the bases, but it's the rest I don't know. I wanted to ask too. So this is a question out of left field.
I see what you did there. Did you get the baseball reference?
Yeah,
I caught
that's what it was.
Yeah.
We're getting there and there, step by step.
So that you described the app as like Moneyball for amateur baseball. What did people call this before like Moneyball came out, or did anybody think this?
Well,
way?
it does have an official name.
Yeah.
Sabermetrics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fair
And
enough.
no one would ever use
Yeah,
that
exactly.
name.
Right.
That's why I asked Brian to say it.
But
Yeah.
was this type of analysis widely being done in sport before the actual movie made it kind of a
Yes.
public
Well,
thing?
it was
Okay.
being done kind of niche. I mean, it was being done literally by a handful of guys who are just baseball enthusiasts and stats guys.
Oh, okay.
And they're frustrated with the current stats. They're looking at if you watched TV 5 years ago, batting average was pretty much the only stat that actually show.
Right.
Right. They show the batting average, maybe runs and RBIs.
Right.
And literally these fans, they were frustrated just saying that's actually the wrong stats to look at. Like RBIs in particular, it's not an indication of how good a player is. It's a good indication of how good their team is.
Right.
If I get on base every single time, but there's nobody ever on base the rest of my team, my RBI count will be 0.
Right.
Does that mean I'm a good hitter or a bad hitter? And so it's basically saying take away some of those stats which don't reflect individual performance and find the ones that do.
Right.
And then at the major league level, I mean, there was, like I said, the Oakland A's, the Toronto Blue Jays, and Boston Red Sox, some of the 3 first organizations to actually do it professionally, where they had literally just teams of statisticians looking at these pieces, looking for any edge they could get.
Yeah.
And that was what led to the movie Moneyball, was literally these guys studying that and saying, holy cow, these guys have built playoff caliber teams for a tenth of the cost of every other major league team.
It's an excellent example of how like data collection and analysis, can actually pay off, right? It's not just about
When I think
getting
about
numbers in a chart.
of a different sport, the NFL, and their creation of the quarterback rating, is there anything in baseball like that where you can sort of say, take all the stats and just give me the dashboard of how his game was? Because the quarterback rating is sort of a new invention in the last 10 years, or I'm not sure exactly, but it seems to me that it's sort of something that's been evolved.
Yeah, and sort of baseball's sort of centered around OPS, on base plus slugging.
Okay.
So it's combining 2 different stats into one, which gives the best overall picture of how often do they get on base with how many extra bases are they creating. So like a single's worth 1 base, double's worth 2 bases, triple's worth 3 bases. Inherently, a triple's worth more, or a home run's worth more than a single. So trying to create a valuation with those. And same thing. I mean, walks. Again, batting average ignores walks. It doesn't factor it in, but
Right.
on base percentage sure does.
I'm really excited about the fact they still call it slugging. That's a good marketing, slugging. It's just a good word to say.
Can I ask another totally like curiosity question? So ERA, right? Earned run average,
Yep.
is that right? What is that?
Well, that's for pitchers.
Yes.
Basically figuring out over the course of a 9-inning, if they were to play a 9-inning game and
Yeah.
they pitched all 9 innings, how many runs would they give up over that 9-inning span on average?
Oh, okay.
All I know about that is that lower is better.
Lower
Right.
is better.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. So
Okay.
if we have a pitcher who's got an ERA of 0, sign me up. I want him all day long.
Gotcha.
But nobody gets there. I mean, realistically, anything 3 and under is phenomenal.
Here's another question. So you hear a lot in professional sports in general, but I think for some reason I seem to notice it a lot more in baseball. People talk about game streaks, right? They've won so many games in a row. Is that does that matter?
Yeah. I mean,
Do you think, statistically speaking, are you more likely to win a game if you're on a streak than if you're not?
Yeah, momentum's a big part of it. I mean, baseball's a mental game.
Right.
So I mean, the piece that's relevant there is it's sort of the intangible piece is confidence a player might have at the plate. I mean, a guy who's thinking, if you're at the plate thinking to yourself, don't strike out, don't strike out, don't strike out,
yeah,
you're going to strike out.
Right.
So yeah, it's mostly just trying to figure out. It's almost, I don't know, it's sort of an informal reference to how much confidence a player has,
right,
either on the mound if they're pitching or at the plate when they're hitting.
Gotcha.
Kind of an intangible, or sort of the context through which you look at some of the data then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Interesting. I just love the fact that I can take advantage of a knowledgeable individual here who can fill me in on some of the stuff that's, not that I'm a huge baseball fan, but...
Need any odds? Are you doing any betting over the weekend
but
here?
you know what? We were talking about the language of baseball earlier. Earlier today, literally as we were I was looking over some baseball stuff to prepare for the podcast today. I was like, I wonder, what's going on with the Jays today, and I heard they won a bunch of games. I'd like to find this out.
Just a few.
Yeah. So I wanted to Google. I searched for Blue Jays. I ended up on a web page that had a whole bunch of stats. And as I'm reading this thing, I'm like, I understand maybe 60% of what I'm reading right now. I just want to know how many games have they won lately, and how many more do they have to win before they clinch the the World Series or whatever. So, but I felt like kind of out of my league.
Oh.
Can I say that?
Wait, was that another baseball
Once again, you just did.
That was pretty good. He was really good with these.
Was that better than the next one?
Is
that 2 strikes?
I haven't been queuing any of these up or anything. Or, I don't have anything on deck.
Oh my god! These are getting worse and worse.
Okay, that one was on purpose. Anyway,
lordy.
what were we saying? Yeah, so just getting used to the lingo, I think, right? Like you were saying.
Well, and one of the things that we found when we were going through the process of designing it, because we had lots of arguments about how it should work, right? Yeah. Is that my catch line all the time was, that's inside baseball, right? Because if a normal human being wouldn't know what that was, then we shouldn't put it in the app,
right?
That's very flattering. Thank you.
Yes. So, but it's.
Are you calling yourself normal, Steve?
Yeah, I think he alluded to you being normal there for a second.
Fair enough.
So it was a very good metric for us internally as we went through the process.
Sure. No, that's awesome. Well, listen, guys, I think this might be a good place to take a brief break and throw in our spot for Igloo Software. So Igloo has an intranet platform that many other businesses make use of, and they are looking for talented developers to join their crew
in their awesome new office.
That's right,
on King Street.
We went to their what do we call that, office warming party or something?
Yeah.
A few nights ago. The bacon wrapped sirloin was excellent.
I preferred the duck balls, but
fair enough.
Unto each their own.
Anyway, take a listen to this, and we'll be back on the other side.
When you use our product, you should be able to use it right away.
Igloo is kind of like a big box of Lego. If you know how to use it, you can turn it into anything you want.
You don't have to have a giant crew to work with Igloo. You can just turn it on and it just works.
The good thing about Igloo is that it's not forcing you to learn how to use the platform. The platform learns how to be used by you.
I mean, my life could be drowning in paperwork, but instead I have one platform to keep my life organized.
Igloo, an intranet you'll actually like.
Have you tried duck balls before?
I haven't had duck ball. I don't think had duck balls before.
Not to your knowledge.
But to be specific, they were like duck meat rolled into a ball.
Right.
much like chicken balls.
What were you thinking?
No, I don't know. I mean, I just
like 2 on a skewer kind of thing.
There's so much ambiguity in much of what we talk about. I just think it's good to be specific sometimes.
True.
They were very tender balls.
Yes, they were.
Yeah,
Dripped right through my napkin.
Excellent. So we are still here with Brian and Mike from Top Score Baseball.
They're sort of with us.
Silently laughing.
Oh man.
We covered the whole range of topics here.
That was
on
way
the
better than the
podcast.
baseball puns.
No, thanks, man.
And we apologize. We had some catching up to do.
I was getting crickets in the baseball puns, but you start talking about duck balls and everything goes down. Anyway. Yeah, so listen, guys, let's talk about how you guys got started with Top Score or Score More. Was it Score More at the start and now it's Top Score?
Yeah, it was Score More Baseball at the start. And it started about 6-7 years ago. I was doing stat tracking in Excel for my baseball team, and just started saying, okay, I'm starting to do these pieces. What else can I do with it? Started just doing some research online, and this is before Moneyball came out, and they had a bunch of publications from Japanese baseball leagues talking about how they were optimizing their lineups. We started doing it. We scored a ton of runs. We gave up a lot of runs. I mean, our plus minus was not great because our defense was atrocious, but our offense was on fire.
Wow.
And after each and every game, the guys would just be hounding me. Where's the updated stats? Where's the updated stats? I'm like, guys, I have a day job.
So that's huge buy-in, right? When
exactly.
They want to see it, and they're bugging you to get that work done.
Exactly.
Excel
so
spreadsheets.
They were all
baseball.
over it.
And what was your day job at that time, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, it's a good question. So at that time, I was working at BlackBerry, and that's where Mike and I met. We're on the same team. And after
developer stuff, or
developer relations. So we're working with sometimes startups, sometimes mid-sized companies, sometimes big guys like Spotify. I mean, it could be anything in between, right? So after I got let go from BlackBerry back in March of last year.
Okay.
Came by and was talking to Mike about the application, what I was looking at. And Mike's first reaction is, I hate sports apps. I will never, ever, ever do a sports app. And I'm like, hear me out. And so I was talking about it and talking about the demand I had from the guys. And talking about this, man, there's legit interest in this. There's a problem at the league level as well as the team level.
Right.
I mean, teams, they want to figure out who should be hitting where instead of address those issues that Mike was talking about. I mean, why is Johnny batting ninth? That's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
And you work through those pieces. And then the league level, I mean, they were having a hard time figuring out even did players make the minimum number of games this year to play for playoffs? Or did that team bring in a ringer on in that final game? Yeah. So we talked about it and talked about the business model. And Mike said, I don't know, let me think about it. So he goes off to, where'd you go? Was it Dominican? Yeah, Dominican.
Always a good place to think about
exactly.
things.
And
a lot of baseball.
Exactly.
Passionate about baseball.
So, and Mike was thinking about it. He was talking to people, and it's like, holy crap, people actually want this.
Yeah.
Not only that, they're really excited about this. And, oh my God, that's going to be amazing. And he couldn't stop thinking about it. And then he came back from the beach.
So can I just say that you were doing your market research in the Dominican specifically for the app?
Absolutely. 100%.
It's kind of like method acting.
That's right.
You booked that trip exclusively to check out the app.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I didn't book it 9 months in advance, and CRA knows nothing about any
Gotcha. Of course.
So, right off the bat, I'm pretty sure I got his wife hating me really, really early because he came back with a full notebook full of notes and questions and scenarios and even done some screen mock-ups. And I'm like, okay, so I take it you're interested.
But, that speaks to the idea and maybe your salesmanship, too, to take a guy who says, I will never, ever be involved in a sports app, and next thing you know, he's got screen mock-ups and pages of notes, right?
I think Brian knows Mike a bit and dangled a carrot in front of him that he couldn't refuse from nibbling on a little bit.
That's right.
Did you want to give us some firsthand, insight into this?
Yeah, how did the notebook in the Dominican develop?
Yeah.
I mean, I had bought a moleskin notebook to just write in when I was down there because I figured, you just I'd have random thoughts and then ended up just
thinking about baseball.
Sketching out
I better buy this book
and,
because I'm going to have some genius thoughts.
That's right. You never know. It's a good exercise.
No, I'm only half joking. It's very cool.
And you know what? I love that because I have a moleskin book that I just got for my birthday that I haven't opened, and that's exactly what I'm going to do with it.
Exactly.
Your next big thing.
I don't know that I'm going to the Dominican. It might be Conestoga College.
Sure.
And you can tell it's an all-inclusive resort because on some of the pages, the lines are a little scribblier. Other lines are a little cleaner. You can almost schedule the time of day.
Yep.
Sure.
That's right. But so we then started essentially going through it and spending some more time thinking about it and we talked about the benefits of not necessarily having baseball background and experience and how that might be able to help us and the fact that we had worked together at BlackBerry for 7 or 8 years. So I hired Brian way back in the day, and so it was just like it's one of those the timing and everything all lined up. I just shut down my previous startup that I was working on called Book a Meeting. So literally wrapped up probably about 2 weeks or so before Brian had contacted me. So it was just kind of all the pieces fit together.
Wow. And if there was anybody else headhunting you for a startup, they only had that 2-week window and missed it, I guess.
That's right. Exactly right.
Can you let Darren know when your next 2-week window opens? He's got about
I got a bunch of ideas I'd like to run past you. Fair enough. So who's kind of doing the coding, and who's doing the businessing and all the other stuff that has to happen in the startup world?
Yeah, so I'm doing the majority of the coding.
Okay.
I spend almost all of my time doing coding or the kind of the infrastructure and back end and stuff.
Yep.
And then Brian and I, for the first bit, he did a fair bit of coding as well. I did essentially the entire game engine when we were building it, and Brian did a lot of the screens around that, like setting up the team and the players and stuff like that, which I've taken over.
Gotcha.
And the goal was that when we launched in March, that would be the last day that Brian would write code, because the lesson that we've learned and all of the work that we've done in the startup community is that most companies fail, especially if they have technical background, by not transitioning into sales.
Right.
And so it was like, I'm going to take away your ability to check in code, and you're now on sales, and that's all that you're allowed to do. And so that'd
be an exciting day for me.
For you to lose the code and go to sales?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
Hang up my coding guns.
Apron.
What do you have?
What do you do when you
Apron.
Thank you. My coding is quite messy.
So
yeah.
and then we picked up a guy to help us with sales as well, Scott, who joined us probably in about March or April timeframe as well, and so then it was Brian and Scott who were kind of out, doing that, and then in a really bad baseball pun, Brian could pinch hit either way. So
Nice.
Sometimes he'd come back and we'd write some code together when we had technical issues or stuff had to happen quickly. But primarily, he and Scott were out either talking to leagues or individual coaches and stuff like that to solve on the game.
Awesome. Was it now? It sounds like what you said about your background working together at BlackBerry. You guys were kind of managing developers or dealing on a business level with developers, not so much getting into the code itself?
Well,
we
ran. So the way that the developer program worked at BlackBerry is that it was separated into two functions. You had essentially a whole bunch of business developers that were actually geographically dispersed and ran by region. So there's someone who ran all of Europe and the Middle East and Africa, for example, and then they had people kind of in country across those geographies. Almost all of the business development work for North America was done out of Waterloo, and then we had people in Hong Kong for Asia, and then eventually Indonesia and Australia and so on.
Sure.
But on the technical side, if any of those partners had technical issues or problems, we were the team that were supporting them.
Okay.
So
you had to know what was going on at the code level.
Yeah, and everybody on our team was a developer. They had great communication skills. It's funny actually because so many of the people who were on that team are now moving into less kind of technical roles, I find, but because they have that technical background, they're just in so much demand right now in what's happening in Waterloo, because you still need to be able to talk technical to manage developers or build teams or all those things, but not necessarily producing the code itself these days. That there's a lot of interest and value in that skill set.
I'm just fascinated by, you see a lot of the people making this transition from being like the guys who are getting their hands dirty with the code into managing teams, into kind of working up the management scale. But, when you get into the startup world, there's no management, right? It's you're doing it all, and making that transition back into pushing to GitHub 15 times a day or whatever else. I don't know. I would assume it can be difficult for some people to kind of do what feels like a step backwards, but I don't know. Was there any of that with you guys? That kind of feeling as you were getting into this, or?
No, I mean, for me, on the technical side, I looked at it. I was really anxious to get back into it. I was looking forward to it so much because you get a little bit removed from it, and it's nice to reconnect with code. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's nice to say, I can still do it if I had to.
Sure.
And
it's like riding a bike.
Well, exactly. And you got to work. The nice thing with working in a startup, you get to do so much more.
Yeah.
Like you're not just isolated to your little piece of the pie. You get to do everything. So you get to work on, like, we learned new database technologies. We were looking at some new hosting pieces. We looked at some offline pieces on the mobile side of things that we hadn't touched previously. I got to do the website, do all the search optimization on it, the analytics on it. This is fun stuff.
Sure.
And you think to yourself, in a traditional corporate scenario, you might touch one of those things.
Right.
Yeah, special. Yeah. When it goes down, there's also only one person to fix it.
Fair enough.
There are pros and cons to our situation, but
Well, and I think there's something to be said for like building something that works, right? And stepping back and looking at it and being like, this, I've built something, right? The same way that someone who's working with their hands will say, look, I've built a dining room table or an IKEA, whatever. And you can do the same with your code, right? Now, Mike, I know you kind of have a 9-to-5 gig as well, right?
Yeah.
So you're heading up things for Velocity, the whole Velocity kit and caboodle.
yes.
How do you find kind of balancing the dual roles you're playing here?
It's actually been pretty good. I think Brian's actually found it probably harder than I have.
Okay.
Well, especially in his recent transition, because he also has a 9-to-5. So Brian, I'll talk about Brian and then I'll talk about myself, which probably sounds bizarre to do. But so Brian was an EIR Communitech when he left BlackBerry, and so he was working 3 days a week, and so he had kind of Monday, Fridays that were primarily his days to work on the business, and so I'd see like a flurry of activity on those days. But I was in my 9-to-5, right, and so I was primarily evenings and weekends, and so Brian just joined Thomson Reuters and took over their innovation lab and is setting it up here in Communitech. And so now he has a very busy 9-to-5. And so he's finding with, young children and evenings and weekends are scarce time.
I told you stuff's happening at 4 a.m.
That's right, exactly. Not necessarily the time you want to be up. So for me, I found it particularly good. I think the hardest part about building a company in this way, which I think we wouldn't have been able to do if we hadn't known each other so well and had worked together so well in the past, is just the fact that so much of it you're doing it on your own, right? Like we did, I probably maybe in the entire year and 6 months we've been working on this together since like maybe last April or May, physically co-located at the same time, working on it together might be 10 times.
Yeah, maybe. It doesn't happen very often. So it just takes an incredible amount of trust.
Sure.
And that was the piece that was nice. Mike and I had that going in. We knew each other. We knew each other's strengths, and we knew we could rely on each other. I mean, Mike's never let me down.
Right.
And I know that he never will let me down.
Right.
Like, he's going to be there. So it's awesome. Like I said, we might not overlap in our working schedules. Like I said, I was working a lot during the days, and he was working a lot in the evenings. And so, we'd harass each other if we needed to get each other's attention during those periods, but we always knew the other guy was going to get it done.
Sure. Yeah. Could you see this, like if the app completely, takes off hugely, could you see this being kind of your full-time gig, or is this always going to be something on the side, do you think?
Well, you're really talking about a dream scenario. It'd be fantastic. I mean, we'll take it in stride. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I mean, right now we're definitely focused on making sure we're providing the best user experience we can, growing the business as best we can, making sure that we got happy customers.
Sure.
So how are you guys dealing with the revenue or the monetization, and how are sales coming along?
So the irony is that I answer the sales question.
That was interesting. Yeah.
So
I answered all the baseball questions. You got to do something.
That's true.
What's the plan?
So it's a paid application. So essentially, inside all the app stores, it's free, and we have a free trial. People can use it for 3 games because we know after 3 games that they'll see benefit from using this statistical approach and stuff like that. And so they can try it for free, and then if they want to use it, there's essentially 3 scenarios they can use it in. They can use it for a tournament, essentially a week pass, or they can use it for a month, or they can buy for the whole year. And so those are tiered at $5, $15, and $50. And then we also sell to the leagues, and so we sell or associations and stuff, because they want to see all of the data, and that's one of the value props that we'll give to them. So we sold to an association last year. It's a big target for us next year. And then there's 2 baseball seasons, right? So in Canada, we only think of 1. There's the summer kind of league, but in the States, especially in the southern states, Texas, Florida, California, et cetera, they'll play 2 different seasons, one through the summer and then another through the fall and winter.
Wow.
And so we're, part of the reason we did the rebrand and kind of got the word back out there again is it's fall baseball season in the States, and we want to make sure that we're appealing to all the coaches that are starting up teams again and getting going.
You missed the early spring season too. So high school, college sports in the States, a lot of them are early spring for baseball.
Right. And those guys are like right up your alley as far as customers too. Right?
Is that a bowling reference?
Awesome. Oh, geez. Wow. I'm mixing my sports references now. Dang it. That's awesome. Now, listen, before we move into our lightning round, Always love the spontaneous sound effects. We are
No expense paid here.
We're going to take another quick break just to throw out a promo for the Waterloo Code Fest that's coming up.
Yeah, October 24th and 25th.
That's right. So take a listen to this, and we'll remind you of the dates after you hear it.
My name's Steve Campbell, and I'm here with TSP Weekly, talking with Darren, Conley. We're here at the City of Waterloo in the Mayor's office, and we're talking about the Waterloo Code Fest.
My name's Raj Sayan. I'm the Business Development Specialist for the City of Waterloo.
My background is having a math computer science degree, so some people call me the tech mayor.
Code Fest is our first annual hackathon that we're doing.
And this is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, and it's been certainly a passion of mine to liberate the data for the citizens of Waterloo.
We want to host the hackathon to be able to release our open data, let everyone know that it's available and it's theirs, and for them to code a mobile application for us to be able to use for the community.
There's active transportation data sets.
Parking infraction data.
There's trail maps.
Cemetery data. Building permit data.
We have lots of data here, but once we liberate it and put it into other people's hands, that's when we'll find new and different uses for it.
His Worship Mayor Jaworski, back in the day, he was a coder.
Well, the first thing I'd do is get out my old COBOL compiler, because that's the kind of languages I know.
So we're going to get him to test out some of his skills at CodeFest as well.
We kick off the Friday night with a little reception.
It is a 36-hour event.
By Monday morning, we'll know what can be done with our data.
What would people expect to be doing when they're at CodeFest?
You're going to see people working hard, playing hard.
It's also a great networking opportunity.
People drinking a lot of caffeinated beverages.
Expect to be fed.
People are working hard for 36 hours straight. Sometimes they're sleeping, sometimes they're up, sometimes they're brainstorming.
Creative breaks, bubble soccer, caricature artist, ukulele orchestra.
So you're going to see things like you never imagined.
Go to waterloo.ca/codefest. That's where you're going to find all the information. It's going to be fun, and we're looking forward to it.
October 24th and 25th, 2015.
That's right. And hopefully you took note of the website that you just heard in that commercial spot. If not, you can always rewind and hear it again. But go to the website, sign up if you're interested. It should be lots of fun. There's going to be food. There's going to be coding, data sets, cemetery data, everything you want in a hackathon, really.
Face painting.
That's right. Really, they had me at food when they said food, to tell you the truth.
That's true.
Duck balls,
I'm a
really.
sucker. Yeah. What's that now?
He is a sucker at duck balls.
Yeah. They better have some duck balls, damn it.
So I'm going to start off the lightning round. I have a
Go
question for Brian. Brian, who's on first?
Dear me.
Oh, what's on second, right?
I don't know. Third base.
That's my only baseball reference I'm going to do.
Fair enough. Is that
That
your
was
whole
my
question?
official
You're done?
question, yeah.
I have a baseball question.
Okay, you might
as
as well get it out of the way.
So if you guys were playing on a team, what position would you each be playing? You can answer it in terms of like what you think your actual skills are, or like it's metaphorically, whatever. Pitching or catching?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I played just about every position under the sun. So I played third base, shortstop, pitch, catch, outfield. So
The ambidextrous.
The only position I don't play is first base. If I have to put my foot on the ground and hold it in spot, I'm terrible. So don't put me on first.
I think I would make a fantastic first base coach.
Right. You don't want to play.
Because I can just say run.
Right. Fair enough.
So one of the things I learned in this conversation is that if my son is batting eighth, that's a difficult conversation to have. My question is, who do I have to have that conversation with, the coach or my son? And what are the questions I need to ask?
Both. So with the coach, like Mike mentioned earlier, the stats are actually just a way of measuring, so you can actually see your improvements. So if you're saying I'm batting eighth and I want to improve, great. Here's the things I need to do to work on it. I can work on my swing. I can practice doing a little extra batting practice. I can work off the tee. And as you do these things, you'll see the measurable improvements to your stats. You'll start rising up through the ranks and landing where you should be to best help the team.
So a batting lineup, if you're the best batter, you're at the number one spot?
Number two spot.
Okay, number two spot.
So if you're watching the Blue Jays and you're saying, why is Josh Donaldson batting second? And in years prior, is Jose Bautista batting second? It's because you want to make sure you're getting the maximum number of runners on base ahead of that best hitter, while also trying to make sure they don't miss an at-bat. Okay. So when that lineup turns over, usually the top three guys might get 5 at-bats in a game, whereas number 4, 5, and 6, and all the way at the bottom, might get 4. If you could, you'd have your best batter at the plate every single time. So make sure they don't miss that extra at-bat.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So the first
go ahead.
person, his
Yeah.
goal is to get on base. That's
Right.
their job.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not clean the plates and knock it out of the
Exactly.
park and bring everybody in.
Yes.
So it's sort of like 3rd, 6th, 9ths are good spots then?
So
or not statistically because you don't have enough to go that deep in
Yeah,
the
so
lineup.
interesting instead. Like, if you look at historically, they put the best batter 4th, right? That was where you put all
Yeah,
your
load the bases,
One,
and
two,
then-
three,
exactly.
then boom.
Bat 'em in.
Yeah, but that dream scenario doesn't play out very often.
Sure.
So a lot of the major changes that have been going on is putting the best batter second.
Right.
So typically, first thing you'll do is you'll grab the guy who gets on base. So your best batter, put him in the second spot. Then the guy who gets on base the most, put him in the first spot. Your heaviest slugger, put him in the fourth spot. Then your next best batter in 5th, and then you'll come back to your next best leadoff guy hitting 3rd.
Gotcha.
Where's the stealth
Interesting.
guy go? The base stealer.
The stealth guy.
You've hit an interesting point. So speed doesn't have as much an impact as people think it does. So speed's actually measured already in your other stats. If you're fast enough to beat out the throw, your on-base percentage will be higher.
Or you're playing football.
Could be.
True story.
No, but
Fair
no,
enough.
there's sprinters are there. Sprinters there. But
Okay.
base stealing it's a tricky one. You have to be successful like 78% of the time for that to be a winning play. Otherwise, you shouldn't do it. So if you've been wondering why base stealing's been going down in the majors tremendously, because if you get caught, it is really, really bad.
Really
Right.
damaging for your team. Interesting.
Makes sense. My question for you guys is, what is one startup skill that you feel you've each mastered at this point?
Startup skill that I've mastered. I would honestly say none, to be honest.
Okay.
If I'm being perfectly honest, there's always more to do, more to learn.
What do you feel most confident doing of your roles in doing a startup? Is a better question.
You know what? I feel confident doing whatever has to be done at the right time. I think that's probably the most important piece you can have is being flexible.
Okay.
So I said that there's periods in time when we're working on the website and working on content. So sometimes we'll be writing content marketing pieces, sometimes we'll be working on search optimization, sometimes we'll be working on recruitment for new coaches, sometimes it'll be social outreach, sometimes it'll be direct mails or direct calls. So just do the job that needs to get done and don't be afraid of picking up the phone. That's the best lesson I can offer to any startup. Pick up the freaking phone.
Right.
Like if you're having troubles with sales, don't go back and say, oh, I can engineer my way out of this. No. You cannot engineer your way to sales.
Yeah.
You have to call more people.
Sure. That'll make sense. Mike?
I think he's being modest. I think if you look at it from mastery, I think the reason that both of us, because we are modest people, we would say none of the above is because we don't feel like we're experts in any of the things that we're doing because we have to do so many things.
Sure.
I think if you look at it from a track record of that definition of something we've mastered of knowing nothing to being quite proficient at it.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian has done amazing things both on the database, but also on search engine optimization, app store optimization, and a lot of those techniques so people see our stuff. And that's been entirely him, and so much so that he's actually given sessions to other people on how to do like SEO and stuff like that.
Sure.
I think
The student has become the master.
exactly. We just know just enough to fake your way through that as well.
The translator.
That's right. I think the area for me that was the biggest growth part was the actual DevOps side of the house. So
Okay.
actually setting up the infrastructure, the back end, keeping it alive. And we're now, and it's funny, that's a combination of just learning new tools, right? Like, using New Relic, for example, so that it emails you when your back end goes down. That's handy.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
But when you didn't know to do that before, and then your customers are emailing you, that's way worse.
Right.
Right. So that's been a huge kind of area of growth for us, and now we actually track like uptime and all these types of things like a real company.
Yeah. Awesome.
Any surprises you guys had coming along? Any mistakes that you made or pivots that you endured?
You want to go first in that one, Mike? I'll throw you right
The
into the
line is
bus.
starting quickly.
So
Yeah.
the biggest challenge that we had was that we underestimated. We had a tough summer on the technical side because we essentially tried to hack our way around one part of the technology that we couldn't figure out how it was supposed to work, and we'd used their support, and we couldn't figure out the right way to do it, and so we ended up using kind of the close to right way to do it.
Right.
And that worked in all of our testing. That worked in any kind of like scoring that we had done. It worked for almost all of our customers. The problem was that for some of our customers in an app that all it does is collect data
Yeah.
and then tell you things about the data, we were losing their data.
Right. Which is not
that
good.
is catastrophic.
Yeah, of
right.
course.
It's kind of like I use Google to search, but it doesn't give me results.
Right.
It's really bad.
Sure.
And I think the biggest surprise for us was we had every intention of fixing that, right? That we knew that we had taken a shortcut and that we were going to come back and, quote, do it the right way later. And in classic kind of lean startup, we're like, this is our minimum viable product and we'll get it out there. We'll see if there's interest. Yay, there's interest. Now we have people. I think the biggest...
comment that section out.
Yeah. So the biggest surprise for me, and this is kind of like one of my favorite lines recently, is that, as human beings, we always struggle to do our best, but there's limited time. So, my wife and my family know that I would love to spend more time with them, but there's a limit. And, you don't always feel like you're doing the best that you can for all the companies in Velocity.
Sure.
But I never anticipated when I started Top Score that I would find a whole new category of people I could let down.
There's only so much Kirkup to go around.
That's right. And I think that was the most surprising thing, which seems so stupid and obvious in retrospect, but
Sure.
that there were people who were literally using it and they're like, listen, I didn't bring paper and pen to the game and your stuff's not working.
Right.
Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, I'll mail you pen and paper.
You are breaking kids' hearts right now.
Yeah. So it was that was really, really tough. And it took way, way longer to fix it and do it the right way than we thought. We're really happy with where we got, and that's what we launched on September 30th with the rebrand. But it took probably a good 12 or 14 weeks in something that we thought we would get done in maybe 3 or 4.
Wow. Amazing. But cool that you got it fixed.
Yes. Cool now.
Yeah.
Boy, what a great user story, though. Like,
Yeah,
here
for
I am
sure.
at the game, buddy.
Yeah.
And I didn't bring the old system.
Somebody courier than a pen
Yeah.
and paper. My next question for you guys is, what is one of your hidden... Is it my turn?
Yep.
My turn. What is one of your hidden talents? Something we might not know that you're good at, but you're actually good at.
Hidden talent. Well, let's see here. Baseball, I play a lot of that. And thanks to the app, we actually made it to the finals for the first time ever, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Man, we're literally one run away from winning the whole thing. That was unfortunate.
Oh, dear.
Trying to think of your hidden talents.
Mike, do you have any hidden talents while he's thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think nobody would understand the work that we've done on the back end and all the lessons that we've learned the really hard way. Even like stupid little things. Like I spent half of last night trying to figure out how to minimize what looks like spam and how to set up our domain and all those different things. So it's pockets of knowledge about kind of systems that you never get any credit for, right?
That's
like
awesome.
my spam, like our delivery rate goes from 92% to 97%, and other than maybe one out of less than 1 in 10 people will notice, right? So
Sure.
it's the little things like that you keep doing to refine it.
But can you play like a musical instrument or something?
Oh, I cannot at all.
No?
Oh, we're taking that kind of hidden talent. I thought we were still in startup land.
No, it doesn't have to be
You know
startup land. I'm just, this is just...
Ukuleles, unicycles.
I got nothing.
You name
Rubik's
it.
Cube? No? Those
Oh,
guys
you're-
in one
I
set
can
apparently
walk
are
on
good at Rubik's
stilts.
Cube. You can walk on
There it
stilts?
is.
Yeah, you're an excellent hockey player.
There
Wow.
you go.
Come on, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm fine now. See how fast that degrades?
I've
Don't
seen
fall down as much anymore.
I've seen
right.
worse.
That's
Counts or
right.
something.
So my last question for you guys is, since we're sort of in a startup sports world, do you have any motivational one-liners or speeches, or when you're spread so thin and there's so much on the line, there's so many people that are want you to succeed and need you to succeed, how do you keep motivated? Is it push-ups and Arnold Schwarzenegger video clips, or what do you guys?
So one of the things that's actually interesting is we had every time we have a waiting screen in the application, we actually said, all right, well, let's do something more of that. And so we littered it with a whole bunch of baseball quotes and like inspirational baseball quotes. So if I ever just struggling for something for inspiration, just look back to like something that like maybe that Yogi Berra would drop or Rogers Hornsby. It's like there's just so many gems in there. It's like, you know what? I think it was one of the ones from Hornsby was like, whenever I'm playing, whenever it's winter, I just look out the window, wait for spring.
Right.
And so it's one of those pieces. Like even though like pieces might be not what you're looking for right now, you know the better weather's coming.
Sure.
Hope springs eternal.
The only Yogi Berra quote I can remember is the one where he said, "Nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded," which I think is great. But anyway, so yeah. Anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that the biggest reason startups fail is because people stop working on them. That might be because it's not fun, or they're not making any money, or they have no money, or a whole bunch of other things. And so for us, and the line that I always say to myself is that we just have to make tomorrow better.
Sure. That's awesome. Listen, in the interest of time, we got to wrap things up. So we got to get our bonus question in. So our bonus question is: toilet paper, fold or scrunch?
Fold.
Fold. 100% fold. It's got to be organized.
Excellent. Excellent. Love to be in a room of folders. Sorry, Steve.
What do you mean? Now I'm chopped liver.
No, that's why I said sorry. I mean, just the one scruncher in the room.
I'm a scruncher, and I can barely imagine even folding. Like, that's how far away from the folding camp I am.
We'll bring you into the fold one day.
That's disgusting.
And I promise that's my last cheesy line for the podcast, guys.
Make sure you don't have duck balls the day before.
Listen, let's wrap things up. I know these guys got things to do. So first of all, we'll throw out some thanks here. So a very special thanks to Mike Kirkup and Brian Zubert from Top Score Baseball for coming on board the podcast today. Thanks, guys.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Our pleasure. We want to throw a thanks to the Velocity Garage. I guess we're kind of thanking Mike twice here because he's running Velocity, but for letting us record in their space. And thank you, our listeners, for joining us on another episode of TSP Weekly. Excuse me. Please feel free to send us your comments, your questions, your criticisms, and your feedback. Our email address is feedback@tspweekly.com, or you can drop us a message on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @TSPWeekly. So for myself, Darren Conley, my co-host Stephen Campbell, and our guests Mike Kirkup and Brian Zubert from Top Score Baseball, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you all next week.